Hey guys, welcome on today's live stream. Today I would like to show you open source Firebase alternative, which is called SupaBase. First of all, of course, let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. Today I'm experimenting with streaming both to YouTube and Twitch in the same moment. I never streamed anything to Twitch, so today it's a bit experimenting time. Maybe I will decide to stream more on that platform. But yeah, plan for today is just to show you the SupaBase and describe you what kind of features this platform actually has. And I will also show you how you can use that SupaBase thing with your Next.js application. So of course, if you have any questions to what you see on the screen, feel free to use chat. I will try to answer your questions if you have any. So first of all, maybe a quick description what the SupaBase is. SupaBase gives us three really important things: the database, the authentication module, and the storage. And the database basically works in the way that SupaBase is responsible for managing the servers, the database for us, and we are getting a nice UI and nice library that we can use for actually storing the data inside the database. But of course, database is not enough because usually we have to store some data, but we also have to have some authentication and authorization layer, and the SupaBase also offers that. In the minute, I will show you how this works in practice, how you can create new users, what kind of APIs the SupaBase gives us, but it's really a neat solution to actually have the database and mix it with the authentication from the SupaBase, because we can have some data marked as completely public, for instance, products in the e-commerce store, but we can also make some of the data from the database private and use the authentication layer just to be sure that certain data can be accessed only for logged in users. The third thing, which is really cool about SupaBase, and I will also show it to you in the minute, is a storage. So basically, we have the concept of buckets to which we can upload files. And of course, the storage and the authentication layer also works in very seamless way, I would say. So we can authenticate the users and make sure that they can upload the files and then manage and delete only own files. So we don't have situation that anybody can mess around with the data. And there's the last thing, which is currently, I think, in alpha tests. It's not yet production ready, but also SupaBase is working on functions. So we're gonna have the functions. The function is basically the custom code that we can deploy on the SupaBase server, and of course we're gonna have possibility to mix that with database authentication and storage. So we can just put piece of the code, some small backend like check whether somebody uploaded the file into the storage, and if the file is uploaded, then do certain thing like create the thumbnail or send email to some people about upload to the storage. So you can do this in many ways. But it's not yet released, so I will not cover this in this today live stream. And what is great about SupaBase is that you can try it for free. So you can just log in to the SupaBase with your GitHub account, and you have the test version, the free version. Of course, the test version is not, you cannot host there something like Facebook or very popular application, but it's, I think, enough for some experiments, for some side projects. I think it's enough, right? You have up to 500 megabytes in the database. And by the way, the database inside The SupaBase is just an Postgres, right? So if we go, for instance, to the settings, and if we go to our database, then you basically see that you have the host, and you can connect to the database behind this system. So it's super flexible, because you don't have the concept of vendor lock-in like on other platforms, like on Firebase, because Firebase, of course, gives you SDK, it gives you APIs, but the database is on their side. And here in SupaBase, it's just an Postgres database. So you can connect to it outside the SupaBase, you can do the backup, you can mess around with the data, and this works in a very easy way. So let's maybe start with the table, and I will try to explain you how the tables are working. So here you can see that we have some UI in which, for instance, we have the ebook, right? So here we have the table called ebook, and here we can submit information about some ebooks that we have in our database. So basically, we have here the user interface, and here we can, for instance, SupaBase ebook, right? The ID is automatically generated. Then we have some timestamps, and if we click save, then we have the new record in our database, right? And this is the user interface. Here we can create new data. Of course, there's no problem with editing the table. So, for instance, if we want to extend this table and add some new attribute, there's no problem with that, right? We can specify integers, booleans, JSONs. There's no problem. It's a regular database. Right now, I will not add anything to it. Let's keep it simple. However, what is really great, that we have the table ready, right? And now let's say we have the Next.js application or React application or whatever. Usually you want to fetch the data and display it in some context. So the SupaBase, of course, lets you do that in very simple manner. Of course, I will show it to you. In case you have any questions about how SupaBase works, how the database works, how the authentication and other things are working, feel free to ask on the chat. Right now, the chat is empty, so probably people have some better stuff to do over the Saturday than listen about the SupaBase. However, if you are just listening and you have some questions, feel free to post them. Even if you see later the recording of that live coding session, you can always use the comment section and just ask there some questions. And whenever I will have time, I will try to get back to it. So, okay, we have the database. I will show you in a minute how you can use it from your Next.js code, but quickly I will just describe the other components, because here obviously you can just create new tables, you can specify some policies. We'll get to it because I don't want to provide right now too much information, but here you can manage your whole database, right? The second component that we have here is authentication. So basically, we can configure per our application how we want to authenticate our users. And we can just enable the email sign up. That's pretty straightforward. Somebody have to give us email, somebody have to provide the password, and then everything happens on the SupaBase side. So this is super convenient, because developing own authentication from scratch on your own is complicated, right? You have to deal with the emails, you have to generate some templates, send them, then you have to validate some situations like, okay, this email was already used. You have to generate the error status. If you want to provide the email confirmations, you also have to generate the token. So this is a lot of work, and SupaBase simplifies that. So you can just you add this to your application and just use their SDK. I will show you in a minute how this works in details. And of course, in the authentication, we have some external OAuth providers. So there's no problem if you want to enable the Facebook or Discord login, then you just have to get the client ID or Discord secret from your account, from your developer account on the Discord. The same goes with other things like Facebook or GitHub. You just have to specify your credentials here, and then you can start using the authentication from the external providers without any problems. Then you also have here some history, some audit trail. So whenever something happens in your system, like somebody logins or somebody confirms the email, like I did today before this live stream, then you have the audit trail of this every operation that happens here in the authentication. And this is also useful because if you don't use system like SupaBase, you have to develop everything on your own, but here you have some stuff built in. Then we have also the storage. And the storage is this concept that we can create buckets. You can create the public buckets. So for instance, the user can upload the avatars, or you can provide some private buckets in which you can hold some files uploaded by your application. And of course, you can control access to these files. And we'll get into that in the minute. As I told you, this database behind the scenes use the Postgres. So you have here also possibility to just use regular SQL. So whenever you want to create a table, add column, or I don't know, perform some SQL inserts, and you prefer to not use SDK or not use the UI for that, there's no problem, because you have access to this database and you can use just regular SQL scripts without any problems. So this is super flexible. And okay. Here what we have in the database, yeah, here you can also do the backups. So yeah, in the free plan does not include project backups. However, if you upgrade to Pro, then you have access to that. Of course, you can always do the project backup on your own, because as I said, you have just the access to the Postgres, and you can use the pgdump or any other tools that are working already for you. Here we have also some information about our database, how to connect to this database from some other systems. Then we have also the triggers and the functions. So for instance, I already tested the triggers a bit. I will show you that, for instance, if somebody registers in this app, I'm also invoking this code. So we are able to extend the schema of our database in the way that we can perform some operations as a reaction to something that happens in the database. So for instance, if somebody created a user, then we can trigger some SQL or some operation on the database. So it's also another thing that it's cool and makes the whole solution really flexible. And here, if you go to the API section, then you have the explanation how you actually can get access to your SupaBase instance, right? Because of course, this is super cool that we have this user interface, but always we want to use this data outside in some applications, in some backend applications, in mobile applications, in web